Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our next episode of Masters of Product. Our topic for today is how do you reimagine the world of consulting in the age of AI? And to help us with that topic, I'm happy to have Raju Malhotra, CPO and CTO at Certinia, to join us. Raju has over 24 years of experience driving innovation at companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, and PAR Technologies. As for me, I'm your host, Mustafa Kapadia. I help product organizations figure out how to use AI so that they can be more efficient and effective. You can learn more about me and my services at echo-point.com. Raju, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that we're finally talking.
Mustafa, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I know you've been traveling a lot, so I'm glad you actually finally made it home. And the fact is that you landed last night and now you're here with us. So I very much appreciate it. And with all the jet lag. So I know it's been international travel as well. But I'm glad you're here because the topic you're talking about is close to mine. I myself came through my pedigrees with consulting, right? I was with IBM. I actually built several consulting practices with Deloitte. And so what we're talking about is near dear to my heart because it is changing, right? Why don't we start? Actually, that's a good place to start. Why don't we start there? So how do you think about the professional services organization or industry changing with AI, right? Both on both sides, both how clients are thinking about it and how consultants are thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a great place to start. First of all, I think as Certinia, we are very much focused on building the software as a service or AI products that help consulting organizations. So just like yourself, I think I've also had experience as a professional services consultant. So kind of I can live this, but really I think this role gives us an opportunity to see how we help in an automated or even going forward autonomous way to help the consulting industry. So I think to your question, one thing to consider is I believe the impact of AI would be most profound on consulting industry. It's probably not a surprise because it is the most manual, most human, business, frankly, most inefficient in many ways.
And it's based on intimate knowledge that now you can access
Exactly.
through LLM. So
exactly. And I think the changes that really will happen on both sides. One, on how the delivery of services is actually happening, how the projects are delivered, and second side, on the other side of spectrum, is really how the demand and the sales addressable pipeline effectively changes as a result of how the delivery is getting augmented by AI tools and AI agents. So I think it's throughout the spectrum. Professional services is right in the eye of that change.
Yeah, I like that point of view. I'm curious, and I agree with you. I think that the delivery and the sales cycle and the pipeline are going to change dramatically, which is your bread and butter. I'm curious, when you talk to your clients, have they talked about changes in behavior on their client side? Like, are clients more, there was a lot of chatter about a year ago saying that, clients are not going to buy consultants anymore, which I think doesn't make any sense. Because people always need help. But there was a lot of chatter saying, with AI, clients don't need consultants because now they can have an AI agent who's a consultant, right? I'm curious to see if you've seen any of that, chatter manifest.
Almost every day, almost every hour of every day, because I think this is really, I think the key point that I notice is it's not that it's end of consulting and sort of augmented or kind of replaced by AI. It's really how that consulting organization changes in helping the clients of their business in a different way. It's sort of like, what happened a few years ago with digital transformation. A lot of new changes with the move to cloud, with the move to, mobile, etc. I think this is way more profound because of, I think, the impact of agents, almost like digital workers, is very profound. But I think this is where the discussion is: what is the new era of services? What is the new role that as a consultant I play? And how do I accelerate your AI-based transformation for your business? Or on the technology side, I think the role changes quite drastically, but it's also, let's be very clear, it's very disruptive. So it doesn't mean everybody is equipped, even on the consulting side. Definitely, I think there's a lot of need for the clients of consulting side, but it's just a learning opportunity for all of us.
I agree with you. I think I think there's a threat to it, which I also know that knowing how consultants work, that threat is also an opportunity, right? And I think it's just smart consultants will just shift as things move. Now, this, of course, these changes to your clients and your clients' clients has a big impact on you and your industry, right? Because you are ultimately you're providing the engine behind the consultants so they can do the great work. Um, so just a high level overview, where does your company fit in,
Yeah.
and where do you see, given this changing landscape, the biggest opportunities and the risks, by the way?
Yeah. So maybe just let me just sort of give you a perspective on what we do today or what we have done for last 8 to 10 years as Certinia. And
Yeah.
Certinia is a software as a service company that really helps on professional services automation. So we have customers that are mid-market or enterprise customers, some of the biggest names that you're aware of. Consulting companies like PwC just rolled out 120,000 consultants, on the Certinia application. We
Oh
also
wow.
have a lot of technology companies like Philips, Siemens, Salesforce, and a number of other companies, and they have consulting organizations of
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of consultants that are using Certinia. But how they use Certinia is really to first to sell their consulting organization, so connect with the
Mm,
CRM and make sure that services estimation, the kind of the bidding, the coding part of this is really kind of well taken care of. It's also about then delivery, so resource management, staffing, project management. That's the
yeah.
second part of what we do, and the third part is really the financial management throughout, so we can close the books as quickly as possible. So that's really what Certinia has done as a SaaS product. Now, how it is going to be disrupted going forward, because absolutely everything is sort of ripe for disruption.
Yeah.
On one hand, we are noticing our customers are using not only humans for delivering the services, but also tools like Cursor, Claude,
100%.
Lovable, a number of other sort of tools. And we expect that over time, maybe not in very distant future, those agents become closer to digital workers. So what that
Yeah.
means, if you sort of go back to the other side of the spectrum, the aperture for the sales pipeline actually goes up quite significantly. Why? Because consulting, as you know, is a very supply constrained business. You can't really bid on a project if you don't have, humans with that type of skill set. But if you have the digital workers or agents
Mm,
that actually bid on projects that you may not have been earlier,
yeah.
sort of, changes that supply and demand dynamic. So that's
100%.
that's
Well,
where I
the team
think.
size changes, right? Which now you can have an agent instead of two consultants. You can have a consultant and an agent.
Yeah,
So your resource structure changes, right?
exactly.
And then yes, you actually gives you more flexibility, right?
Exactly. I think that's the new role for how we see Certinia evolving, not only providing an automation, but really helping in the autonomy of the professional services for our customers. So, we want to be able to not just, resource manage or staff and project manage the humans, but we want to
Yeah,
be able to do that for the hybrid team of
yeah.
humans and digital workers.
Yeah, I mean, I see that already, right? So a lot of customers that we work with are product organizations, and now they're having quote unquote agents for POs and BAs, as opposed to actually having or augmenting them with agents, so they can change the shape of their product organization, right? And actually move PMs and POs into more product managers as opposed to doing that stuff. So I see that happening. I 100% agree. I see that happening with consultants as well. Um, Given that landscape, how does that impact you and the products, right? Because your entire product is almost like an enterprise suite
Yeah.
that sits underneath all the work that consultants do. And so,
Yeah.
do you see changes in your platform, or do you see new opportunities there, or are you bringing out new products, or what are you guys thinking?
Yeah. So this is kind of interesting way to think about it. We've had predictive AI, so the heuristic based machine learning. We also have had generative AI for summarization of
Right.
data and content. And now I think the significant way this is changing for us is introducing the idea of agentic AI throughout
Yeah.
our SaaS platform. And we currently have two agents that are in the market for our customers. One is staffing agent. The second is a customer success agent.
Perfect.
So effectively, the way to help this new world of AI or the agentic AI is for us to solve it even from Certinia perspective as providing help as agents to our customers. So not only they can get
Mm,
the assistance, but actually more importantly, they can get some tasks in a semi-autonomous or eventually in an
yeah.
autonomous way that a staffing manager might do.
No, I agree. And by the way, resource management and staffing is one of the hardest things to do because
Yeah.
clients need to start now, and you got to figure out where you have capacity. Um, I think that's good, and I'm glad that you're focusing on those things. Can I ask you? Let's just take let's go 5 years now, 5 years in the future, maybe even 10 years. Let's be even more crazy. How do you see your product or your organization changing? Like, what's further out on the horizon?
Yeah. So I think you're right. The product is changing in significant way, and maybe I think the other question you asked, which is the organization, is changing in quite
Yeah,
significant way. So we talked about, I think, the product really becoming more agentic and helping
yeah,
customers not only kind of improve the workflows through some predictive and generative AI, but also
100%.
really have the agents to
Yeah,
uh, do some tasks. But I think the impact on organization really is even more profound. It's sort of like the old adage of charity begins at home. We can't really
yeah,
deliver good AI unless we are using and deploying the latest and modern stack for our own purpose within the
yeah.
product management, engineering, user experience, DevOps, security, every sort of aspect of our business. And I think that's where I see a lot of profound change in the organization. The role of
Mm,
product manager becoming not just a product manager for the old school, write some Confluence user stories and ship it to a engineer, and then they come back and they do whatever
yeah,
they do anyway, and then there's a back and forth, to more about product engineer, where even a product manager can actually spec out some requirements but really give a prototype. They can work on Lovable. They can even, we have deployed, started out with Cursor for everybody. Now we have Claude sort of uh,
nice.
4.5. So I think I see the roles changing for product management, for engineers, for UX, but more importantly, I think the velocity and agility of this process
100%.
in interacting with our
Yeah,
customers also changes.
yeah. Because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, your product is going to change dramatically,
Yeah,
right? Even if and I know we just talked about what you're doing now, but if you think about even 5, 10 years from now, the platform is going to change dramatically. But in order for that platform to change dramatically, your organization is going to change, and it needs to change, right? And you and I talked about it before. Is that I agree with you. The role of a product manager, how you define what a PM does, is going to be different, right? And you've already alluded to the fact that now you can have product managers who are real builders,
yeah,
right? If you give them Bolt or Lovable or whatever, or Cursor, whatever it is, now they can actually prototype on the fly. And at the end of the prototype, you actually have a code that you can then take and figure out how to deploy and so on and so
yeah,
forth. And then it changes dramatically, right? The way
yeah,
you do product discovery changes dramatically.
yeah.
I actually, if it's okay with you, I want to actually go back. So, um, how do you think that your company and the organization is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years in the future? What are the news? I know consulting is going to change dramatically,
Yeah.
right? Your platform is going to change dramatically. I'm curious to see what your vision is at that moment in time. And then let's walk backwards and see what that means for your product organization, if
Yeah,
that's okay with you.
really the vision, and I don't even think it's going to take 5 years. Frankly, it might be another 2 to 3 years.
Oh,
The vision,
interesting.
I think, is we focus on providing automation for our customers through everything we do. Our
Yeah.
product really, simplifies the workflow automation, brings a unification of data to simplify those, actions that our users
Hmm.
are doing. It moves from automation to autonomy. And I think the world is not going to be in our sort of vision where it's completely autonomous, that the agents are actually doing all the demand and supply orchestration or the resource management or project management. But I think it basically is a hybrid sort of team where even the consultants are really thinking about where do I scale, especially on
Yeah.
some niche skills that I don't want to build, longevity, myself. but
Yeah,
also how do I really communicate and build a better vision for my customers using the
I
human
agree.
capital. So I think in that profound way, our
Yeah.
organization really sort of changes, the product changes to support that growth
Yes.
for our
Yeah.
customers.
I actually think you make a really good point, because I think the word automation is usually not the right word. It's augmentation and amplification,
Yeah.
just like what you just talked about, right? If you see that as you see that vision, and you're right, maybe it doesn't take 5 years, maybe it's 2 or 3 years. I'm curious, what do you think are the biggest challenges in realizing that vision?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that don't change, even though a lot of that disruption changes. And one
Yeah.
of the things that doesn't change is our human behavior. So
Yeah.
anytime there's disruption, I think the biggest obstacle is actually us in many ways to really think about how we can
No, it's a
think about
mindset change, right? It has to be,
mindset.
we have to think differently.
And I know this is a cliche almost for everyone in your audience and
Yeah.
yourself, and I feel like, there's a lot of truth in that, which is how do we really think about a new way of product development, new way
Oh
of
yeah.
building, new way of interacting, and
Right.
the AI first or the AI native or all that
Yeah.
sort of cliches. There's a huge sort of importance in embracing the core message in that, which is I'm actually really I can be way more productive using even tools like Gemini or
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Notebook LM, and a bunch of other things. With those things, if I don't use them, that's actually a disadvantage. If I
Yeah.
use them, that potentially makes me almost like an equalizer. Um, but I think that sort of way to imagine and scale how we can deliver value, I think that is something is a non-trivial thing. I think it's a
Oh
human
yeah.
behavior is not
Yeah.
very easy to change for ourselves.
100%. I actually think that we are going through a paradigm change in just the way we work, especially the product organization. And we see, like anything else, we see people who are leading the piece, and some people who are resisting. Which kind of brings me to the next point, is that as you are bringing these type of changes to your own product organization, and I know you have a large product organization, both product and engineering. How is that adoption going? Like, how are people embracing it, or are you probably having a little bit of both, right? You
Yeah.
probably have embracement and resistance at the same time. Yes.
I think the good thing about being in our business, product engineering, you have very smart but also very skeptical folks who
Yes.
oftentimes a lot of successful product managers and engineers are very much thinking from a first principles side,
Yeah.
and they're thinking for themselves.
Yes.
So on one hand, by the way, that basically makes the rollout not as easy, because I can't just say, hey, you know what, everybody 500 folks just basically this
Let's
is
use
our
it. Yeah.
product. So what we did about 6 months ago, we really started with seven teams amongst our
Mm,
sort of portfolio, and we basically started out with a number of tools for those teams. And we picked Cursor, we had Figma UI, we had
right.
some product management, and then on a monthly basis after that, these teams actually shared some of their learnings, best practices. And just to be clear, not everything is rosy, because
No.
a distinct feedback you would hear from a senior engineer versus a entry level engineer versus someone mid level about how much beneficial the code generation aspect of AI
Yeah.
are. So long story short, I think we've had a lot of debates and discussions, but just about maybe 2 months ago, we did sort of standardize on a AI stack that we are using
Oh,
ourselves,
good.
and that is something we are investing in. We're not only investing in buying those licenses, but we're also investing in time for training, enablement,
Yes.
usage,
Yes.
and doing best practices. And that's
Yeah.
the journey that we are on. I would say it's sort of like a disagree but commit type of approach, where there was a time for discussion, etc. But generally speaking, how we are using it is different. But it's not a question of whether we are using it. We are.
No, I think I like that point of view, because sometimes when I talk to CPOs, they're still in very much the discussion phase about, okay, what tool should we buy, and if we should use it or not, and how much can we trust it. The fact that you've gone over that hump is fantastic. Raju, I didn't talk to you about this, but we actually just did a industry first benchmarking report on AI empowered product teams. I don't know if you got it or not, but I'll send it to you. But your journey mimics exactly what the benchmarking data talks about too. One of the biggest obstacles is the organizational piece that you've been talking about, right? And I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about beyond just providing tools,
Yeah.
because I've
I would
actually
see that.
seen,
I would love to read that report. I think,
yeah,
again, this is interesting because you can't really over index on one tool, one kind of, thing.
no,
Things change fast
no,
enough. You can't also be constantly changing because you need the
you
right
need some
balance of
stability. Yeah,
stability.
because you're absolutely right. And what I've seen actually, and I'm glad that you're doing adoption with tools and then support and training, because what one of the anti patterns I've seen is you just throw the tools out, people start using it. If they don't know how to use it well, they have a bad experience. And now you, Raju, have a much harder job of convincing them. You
Yeah.
got two humps, right? You got to first now convince them that, oh, wait a minute, it's, it can give you a good experience. And then you have to drive adoption, right?
And let's not forget, there is a huge risk of using the tool incorrectly. So we
Yeah,
started out with a responsible AI strategy. So in this case, we want to be very careful of not introducing security issues, not introducing
100%. Yeah,
issues, not introducing, IP leakage issues
yeah,
as we use these AI tools, because you can actually really kind of force multiply the bad things as much as you can force multiply
100%.
good things
Yeah,
because of
I
AI.
mean, you see that too, right? You see AI slop everywhere.
Yeah,
And so if you have a bad tool or you have a bad process or teams who don't know how to use it, all you're going to get is junk faster,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that actually makes your life even harder.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and in your case, it's a double-edged sword, if I understand it correctly, because not only are you changing the way you're working, but the way you change the way you're working means a direct impact to the products that you're building, because now consultants are changing the way you work, right? So in many ways, you have to eat your own dog food, in a certain way.
Exactly. Yes, yes, exactly. I think that's the whole idea of us actually staying ahead of using the AI tools so
Yes,
we
you
can
have to. Yeah,
AI agents for our customers way better, way higher quality, and
yeah.
faster than anything else.
I'm curious, and I'll send you the report. I apologize if I haven't. I'm curious, as you've gone through this journey, what has been the most surprising part? Like, what are the things that people are doing that surprised you the most? Or what are some of the things that you heard from a resistance perspective that
Yeah.
surprised you the most?
What has been surprising is that there hasn't been that much resistance. In fact, it has unlocked a lot of creativity
Yes.
books. So I'll tell you, one of the surprising thing for me personally was this sort of the way I used something like Gemini or OpenAI, Chat, GPT versus I would use Claude. Now, what I basically found, and I think this is something I learned even within our team, you use Claude as a almost like a chat or research agent
Yeah.
for non-engineering, non-code generation kind of stuff. In many ways, is actually better than anything else. So I think a lot of experimentation and the models that are
100%.
used underlying are actually very much different. Personally, the thing I was like very excited about just a few weeks ago when Nano Banana came out from Google,
Yeah.
image generation kind of tool, and it keeps the certain parts of your image that you upload same, but then it can
Yes.
modify based on that thing is like just on a consumer experience personal level
I
is
love it. Yeah.
so basically I think just unleashing of creativity, how we actually even have our
Yeah.
meetings, how we use some of the transcription and summarization to how we interact with each other. It just sort of it's a very very different way of operating now that in fact it used to be even 3 to 4
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like 5 years ago. It's night and day. Even like 6 months ago to now is things are different. In some ways, I think it's more complex. We basically need to learn and we need to sort of simplify things. But at the same time, generally speaking, it's way more creative use that actually surprised me quite a lot.
I think that's great. And I agree with you. I'm glad to hear that the resistance is minimal, because I think it's also one of those things in which people may be internally resistant, but then when they see other people use it, they're like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
am I not doing this? Right. And I think that's infectious. Right. And I do think that it does unleash a lot of creativity. I mean, I know we talk about productivity and velocity, but I think, in my opinion, people become PMs is because they are creative people.
Yeah.
Creative people like to build.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why you're in this profession. And so if you have something that allows you to do that, why
And
not?
it's the next level, because I think the problem solving, there's a 101 level, there's a 201 level, 301.
Oh,
So I think
100%.
the power
Yeah.
of a lot of this creativity, you actually get a right and a fun to solve way more complex problems than, I think it's sort of like a gamification. You get transported to level 3
Yeah.
of a 10 level game, as opposed to starting with 1 and 2 and 3 and
100%.
4. So it's
You
it's
know,
way more fun in
yeah.
that.
And we've seen that in the data too. You get somebody who's a junior PM, you have them empowered or enabled an AI. Now suddenly they've gained 10 years experience,
Yeah.
right? And then you get somebody who's a senior PM or even a leader, and you enable them to AI, and now they can see things that they never thought they could see before. So it
Yeah.
really helps them look around corners, right? And allows them to be even much more better at what they do. And that's where the amplification piece comes
Yeah.
in. Which kind of brings me to the next question. I know you're building your team and your team is growing, right? So that means that, you're going to need different types of people to join your team, right? So I'm curious to see, where are you thinking there? Like, how is your role shifting? And then what kind of people are you seeking to fit that role?
Yeah. So currently we have a team in UK, Spain. We have had a team in India, but we just opened a new office, R&D office in Bangalore, and we're actually hiring across all those locations. But particularly because Bangalore is new, I think that's where I think a lot of hiring is going on. But to your question, it's interesting. If you look on our public website, I think all the roles are sort of like standard roles. It's a product
Yeah,
manager, engineer, or user experience designer, etc., etc. But the focus for us to hire is one, I think, and it sounds very generic to say growth mindset sort of perspective, but
yeah,
really, I think on one hand, if we're hiring a product manager, obviously understanding the methodology, understanding how to work with engineers, how to really think about the
right,
vision, strategy, roadmap planning, cadence, and measurement, sort of the view, but then really being open to creative problem solving, familiarity with some new AI tools, and really being able to have a much more cohesive and collaborative experience with the rest of the software development team,
mm,
even as a product manager. To your earlier point about the prototyping. So the idea is still, hey, you know what? This is our vision. This is our
yeah,
strategy. This is sort of like the prototype before I put down the epics and stories. But now I can actually describe some of this sort of idea as a prototype. Now I'm not expecting our engineers to just pick up that code and kind of put it in production, but it sort of clarifies things in
yeah,
a very different way. So I think that's sort of
100%.
how the role is changing. It's
Yeah,
not just about tooling, frankly. I think tooling is a big part of it, but it's really having someone who has this mindset of ownership. Like the old adage about the whole product ownership in agile framework is still very true, right? The
yeah,
ownership mindset, but really collaboration and taking that
yeah,
explanation of what we are trying to do, why we are trying to do at a much more specific level, so we can build something which is much more
yeah,
meaningful, and then we can adapt it. We can test the product market fit. We can just change things as our customers are expecting different sort of iterations of
yeah.
it. I think that sort of the mindset is very much needed.
I agree with you. I think the role itself is changing. The way we build product itself is changing, and I love I love the now or the idea that, what, PMs don't have to now stop at a PRD. Why do something in 2-dimensional when you can do a prototype and do it in 3-dimensional,
Yeah.
right? And you can play around with it. You're much better at communicating your vision by showing as opposed to just writing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end of it, you get code that you can then eventually, like you said, you still have to go through through several iterations, but you have code that you can play around with that you can then put into production, right? Um, and I think I also like the fact that, what, I don't know. I mean, yes, you still need to have product-minded people join you. They just need to be able to be comfortable using AI for everything that they do, right?
Exactly.
It's almost like, I say like, well, how can you work without Outlook or Gmail,
Yeah. That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Because that's what AI should be.
Yes, I
That's
think
the
that's
goal.
exactly right. I like the framing you had about product minded, and in fact, it goes both ways, right? We talked about product managers being able to have the prototype and code. But it's the same thing for engineers. Engineers actually can now also, do some deep research because they have the right tools to say, wait a minute, I don't think the total addressable market for what you're suggesting is actually as big as, maybe we initially thought. How about we do things a little bit differently? So I think the software engineer is not necessarily as linear. You give me the PRD, I kind of give you the code, which, by the way, never worked, just to be very clear. I think that was like, it never worked in the waterfall. It never worked in the agile.
It's a classic handoff, and handoffs don't work, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that's lost in
Yeah.
that translation. Yeah.
I think it just makes it much more fun, even for engineers, for UX, for content,
Yeah.
for security, to basically be part of this and be able to question that, oh, just because you're a product manager, you don't get to dictate the requirements. This is a true product management, product development team, as Scrum should be. And I think that's where I think it raises the bar for everyone.
I
But
agree.
it's the accountability, right? Accountability for engineer is still to ship a high quality code that actually works for customers, solves a very specific problem. But I think it just sort of, makes it much more 360 transparency that has not existed before.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this makes the trend. I don't want to use the word handoff, but this makes that process a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't eliminate all the issues, but it makes it easier. And I think earlier you also mentioned is that, and I agree with you, and I've seen this with our clients, is that you now see engineering managers move more upstream into product.
Yeah.
Because they already have the technical skills. AI allows them to be more product minded. And so now suddenly they have new career paths that they've never thought about. And we've seen that all the time. We've seen that in which when we empower teams, you'll see a lot of engineers saying, you know what, I think I can want to be a product manager because it's a lot more fun, right?
Exactly.
And from a CPO perspective, that's great because now you can actually get both the product and the engineering all within one person. It makes a huge difference because that ownership makes it much easier.
Exactly.
Because you know this as well as I do, right? Engineering is not about, you spend only 10 or 20% of the time building functionality. The 80% of the time is all the non-functional stuff that you need to build.
Yeah.
Right? That's what takes the most amount of time. And so at least with this one, you can actually have that person can do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Right? That's great. I think that's fantastic. And I agree with you. The roles are going to change and the way you hire is going to change. I'm curious, as you're thinking about these new folks, have you changed the way you guys interview?
We have. I think we do things that are standard, what we have done before. There is some type of assessment, there are interviewers, different stages. But I also think the type of discussions have changed. And we are looking for individuals who have that, product mindset, the growth mindset, familiarity with different sort of ways, but also really way more empathy for how fast things are changing and the customer domain and the requirement, because the customer problems actually don't change as frequently. How we solve those customer problems change. And I think
100%.
I usually, have those conversations with senior engineers as we have with the product folks, as we have with the UX folks. So the type of questions actually have changed. It sort of, makes it more open and really is shared accountability for driving the business growth, not just the product growth, and not just shipping code or releases or features, but really sort of how do we become more outcome focused? And I think that's sort of the mindset change. Is how we are sort of interviewing.
I agree. I think you need to test for all of those things because I think outcome focused, product minded, ownership, all of those are great qualities, right? And then you make sure that they actually have some kind of fluency with AI.
Yeah.
Sorry, I asked that. It's a selfish question. I'm actually in the process of writing an article about how interviewing has to change and how you can test for AI fluency in an interview. So I'm going to use your content for some of my thoughts. So I brought that thing. Raju, this has been awesome. We're actually over time, which always happens when you actually have a good conversation. If it's okay with you, I would love to have you back. Maybe next time we do this podcast in Spain. Both of us love doing this. Both of us are a big fan of the country. Maybe that's when we do it, and you can share with me and the audience how things have changed dramatically. Maybe we come back in a year or so from now.
As long as
do that if you're open to that.
as long as we do it over sangrias and tapas in
That's
really
perfect.
not
We'll do it over, in between, on top, you name it.
awesome.
That
I'm
should be
all in.
great.
All in.
Thank you for being a guest, Raju. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun conversation.
Perfect.